Skooma! Oh yeah!
Skooma is the substance manufactured from refined moon sugar and is notoriously addictive.
Skooma! Skooma!
Its imbibers pass through bouts of euphoria, followed by protracted lethargy,
Sweet skooma.
forever leaving those who partake at the mercy of the next fix, much to the dismay of the addict's loved ones.
All he thinks about, all he cares about is skooma.
As such, skooma possession is a jailable offense, at least in Cyrodiil, by the Empire.
I don't care what it takes. We must get that poison they're selling off the street.
However, despite its prohibited nature, the skooma trade is very much alive and well during the events of the Oblivion Crisis. But that begs the question, where is it coming from? Well, in today's video, we'll be putting on our detective hats to follow the intricate web of skooma as it's dispensed throughout Cyrodiil directly from distributor to dealer to den dweller, and then go a step further by uncovering the secret supplier of all of Cyrodiil's skooma, which is hiding in plain sight.
Skooma!
Rumoured to be cut content that was eventually scrapped was an entire skooma smuggling operation questline the players would reportedly find and shut down, the remnants of which still exist in-game.
A small group of skooma dealers led by a Dunmer named Kylius Lanavo is holed up in the Greyland settlement just up the road.
However, the only skooma-driven quest left is in Leyawiin, in which a guard has to expunge a local Dark Elf dealer
I need someone to go in there and put a stop to those fetchers.
in an isolated hut but a stone's throw from the city limits.
Show me what you've got! Ha!
However, that didn't deter the developers from leaving the bulk of the subtle skooma distribution network scattered across the map. In fact, there are 3 notable skooma locations in Cyrodiil, still interconnected by NPC mules/distributors. Some players are no doubt already familiar with, as it's pretty difficult not to stumble across, the first being the squalid flophouse in the seedy city of Bravil, which even the locals openly deride.
I can't believe nothing has been done yet. The place is a skooma den, pure and simple.
And then there's the more clandestine and upscale den in Cheydinhal.
Oh, it's a grand house, Riverside, and they have grand parties there. All the rich swongs and swells of the town come in. Leave a right mess, they do.
Both of which are hiding in plain sight, and although we will explore why they're both allowed to continue for different reasons by the counts in charge, more importantly, we'll also trace how exactly the skooma actually ends up in the dens in the first place. First is arguably the most important central hub that ties these 2 dens together, which is perhaps the most easily missed of the 3, and resides in the Imperial City's waterfront district. Just ask the troubled Phalian, the High Elf, how hard it is to find a fix.
Get me some skooma and we'll be good friends. Okay?
So much so, he was relegated to wandering the streets daily, emboldened to take up residence in a murdered associate's house instead of a nice, steady supply.
Lockmira he ain't around no more.
The only dedicated dealer seems to be located outside the Imperial walls for safety purposes, named the trustworthy Shady Sam.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Come here. I got what you need.
Why then instead does Phalian search for skooma on his nightly strolls, far from the safety of the city's walls and down in the waterfront district?
Skooma.
Interestingly, the developers have rewarded our following of Phalian, but where exactly is this secret skooma location, you ask?
Hey, whoa! You shouldn't sneak up on people like that.
Well, in the waterfront district, the player can find hiding, almost in plain sight, 10 skooma bottles inside the locked barrel outside of Mavrina Arano's house. Now, an incredibly important detail that should be noted is that in Oblivion, skooma never appears randomly and most skooma does not respawn. This barrel being the exception, as every Turtus 10 more appear, and I believe there is a reason why this barrel specifically is special, which we will investigate soon. Perhaps more pressing, however, is that this barrel attached to her house makes the Dark Elf Mavrina Arano the prime candidate as local distributor, with a steady supply of skooma coming in from an unknown source and her underworld ties alluded to by her own threatening demeanor.
I'm Mavrina Arano. I persuade people.
Even simply asking her about the Imperial City will have her reply.
People in the city, they get stuff and forget to pay. So I help them remember. You talk to them, lean on them a bit, and they remember right away.
So it seems she's the local enforcer for those who forgot to pay up. And a character is all the more interesting when you consider the following. The caustic Dunmer dealer was revealed during the Thieves Guild quest to have been at some point flipped by Hieronymus Lex and turned informant.
That can't be right. She doesn't seem to be the type.
So it's safe to assume Mavrina was making money hand over fist while double dealing under the table. It goes without saying that it would be unwise to have a dedicated skooma den in or near the city that's being turned upside down by the city guard at a moment's notice. An added perk of her informant role is evidenced by the fact her name is removed from the taxation ledger that's stolen in an early Thieves Guild quest, making a potential blind spot for the guards with her illicit dealings, marking her as untouchable while under the employ of Lex. However, unfortunately for Mavrina, that employment didn't last long, as the player is involved in having her arrested during the related Thieves Guild quest, and by siding with the player, the bumbling Lex has potentially inadvertently crippled the Imperial City's local skooma trade.
But I've been loyal to you. I've reported everything that Armand has done. You can't just toss me aside like a soiled cloth.
Yes, I can. You are under arrest for the theft of the bust of Lathasa Indaris, Countess of Cheydinhal. Come with me.
And yet, even when Mavrina has been tossed aside by Lex, the skooma keeps on coming. So then, who is the secret supplier? We could ask Mavrina in prison, but, well, she doesn't seem too willing to give up her sources.
Leave me alone.
Skooma.
Before we investigate the who of the secret supplier, let's take a quick inventory of what we do know to be confirmed. See, rather curiously, Mavrina's chest outside her house has a special visitor every week. In fact, the barrel does not belong to her at all. Instead, the owner of the barrel relates to the larger, official skooma ring. But how is this revealed, you ask? Well, after doing a bit of detective work, I found the wiki confirms the barrel is bound not to a person, but instead to a faction known as the Aurum Gang, an infamous gaggle of orcs who hail from Cheydinhal.
Yeah, I'm Bazur Grogars. I got protection from the Aurum Gang, so don't mess with me or they'll fillet you real good.
One of said gang can be seen approaching the barrel on a weekly basis.
What do you want, Breton trash?
But if the name sounds familiar to those more partial to the Waterfront District in particular, that's because the gang is arguably at the center of this entire skooma operation, and just so happens to be first mentioned publicly in the Black Horse Courier edition, The Grey Fox Unmasked. See, when the Hieronymus Lex and the guards were busy squeezing the Waterfront District inhabitants in his crusade to take down the Grey Fox, well, during this commotion, one of the unfortunate locals was nabbed in the shakedown, named Vlanaris Kavinchel.
Can you tell me where Armand Kristoff is hiding? No, sir. Please don't hurt me.
An Imperial commoner living with his siblings, although he's known to mostly complain about them.
Castiv says he works. Ha! Flies land on him. He's too lazy to brush them off. I'm sick of taking abuse for him, even if he is my brother.
When sober, we learn 3 key details from Vlanaris. 1. He's a fan of the Black Horse Courier, being one of its many vendors.
Don't be the last to read today's Black Horse Courier.
2. He doesn't believe in the Grey Fox personally.
The Thieves Guild probably doesn't exist, and it's a sure bet the Grey Fox doesn't either.
3. We hope he can't read, as the Black Horse Courier article that Vlanaris just handed to us, grinning like an idiot, titled The Grey Fox Unmasked, reveals.
Here's a copy of the Black Horse Courier. Identity of the Grey Fox revealed.
Vlanaris Kavinchel recently admitted to being the notorious thief, the Grey Fox. Under questioning by the Imperial Watch, he also confessed to being the reincarnation of Tiber Septim, the love child of Lord Stendar, a wereshark and the mother of Hieronymus Lex.
He's that Imperial Watch captain that's always chasing after the Grey Fox and the Thieves Guild.
Only after he spent a night in the Imperial prisons was it discovered that Vlinaris had recently consumed a near-lethal dose of skooma. Vlinaris is now back home and recuperating from the hospitality of the Imperial Watch and from the close attention he received during his interrogation. He speculates he might be able to work again in a month or two, so long as it doesn't involve walking or lifting anything heavier than a beer mug. The sometimes dock worker has sworn a solemn oath never to trifle with skooma again and earnestly warns everyone to stay away from the Aurum gang.
Why do you bother me? Go away.
Skooma.
The Aurum gang members hail not from the Imperial City, but instead are located in Cheydinhal. Trying to learn more of their illicit activities, we find the members of the Aurum gang are quite rude and unapproachable, often encountered ambling about Cheydinhal, starting with their leader Dulfish Gro Aurum, an orc barbarian. The first time you try to talk to Dulfish, he will reply with the subtle,
Get lost or I'll pull your arm off.
The next time he'll reply with,
You don't listen? You stupid? Crot, I'm wasting my breath. And go ahead, stand there, talk all you want. You're a fly, go ahead and buzz.
But at least he'll allow you to ask about Cheydinhal, to which he will politely respond.
Ooh, look, a fly, buzz, buzz. Hey, look, everybody, I'm talking to a fly. Buzz, buzz, buzz.
After that, he'll only ever say,
Buzz, buzz, buzz. Go away, little fly.
Then there is Bazur Grogaz, an orc thief who already briefly warned us about the gang.
Boss uglies in Cheydinhal are the Aurums. Don't mean nothing to you. You is the outside. Just stay outside and everything's Mr. Tinker. Got me? You're talking to me and I don't like you. Goodbye.
Then there's Magub Gro Aurum, an orc warlock who introduces.
Annoying creature. Yeah, I don't care who you are. I ain't talking to you. You ain't from around here, so push off.
The friendliest of the bunch seems to be Borba, as she is the trader in town, proprietor of Borba's Goods and Stores.
Borba Grauzgaj. We've got everything the adventurer needs. I'm an old adventurer myself, and I know what's wanted.
And it's probably due to her job in hospitality.
Stop talking! Enough!
And finally, there's Oghash, who we first spotted in the waterfront and is no exception to the rest of the gang. When you engage in conversation with her, she'll simply say,
And why do I care exactly? Yeah, I don't need you, so go away, huh? I'm asking real nice because my mom brought me up right.
When asked about Cheydinhal, she will reject you with the words,
What are you asking me for? Do I look like Vile's dog or something? Go on. Knit a doily or play a flute or something.
In regards to the respawning skooma in the barrel out front of Mavrina's house, the only way to track its journey is by following the surly orc. On Turtus of every week, Oghash wakes at 6 AM and sets off for the Imperial City, which is no small feat. She heads off down the Blue Road, then turns north onto the Red Ring Road, heading right around the north side of Lake Rumer before walking across the Talos Bridge into the city. This journey takes her most of the day, and she usually arrives in the Imperial City at about 8 PM. Upon picking up her skooma collection, she then resumes her normal schedule at 6 AM the next day, leaving the horse at the tunnel door back to the city. But what does she do with the fresh skooma supply in hand? The next day on Fredis, Oghash leaves Cheydinhal at 6 AM and heads up to Walker Camp. Once there, she hands over all her skooma in return for whatever gold the primary Commoner Tong thug is carrying. Morrowind players will no doubt be familiar with the Tong, a crime syndicate hailing from Vardenfell.
If you'll excuse me, I don't have time for you right now, or ever. You remind me of my homeland during the Blight.
But the skooma journey doesn't stop there. If the main thug is in possession of the skooma at midnight between Tertus and Freitas, he will then take it to the hollow rock near King's Crest Cavern and leave it inside before returning to his normal schedule. This is where the trail seems to run cold. Unfortunately, whatever was meant to occur past this point of contact, if anything, has ultimately not made it into the final game, as the skooma is never collected, nor does King's Crest Cavern bear any discernible value or even residence to speak of. Now, it should be noted, if the primary Komonotong thug is dead when Oghash arrives, she may still make the exchange by placing the skooma on his corpse. Later the same day at 10 PM, Oghash will hand over the gold that she collected to Doolfish. She's meant to keep 100 gold for herself, but does not due to a game bug. Doolfish, although a criminal figure in town, is known to then frequent the exclusive parties every Loredas held at Riverview, or as the owner Voronil explains.
I'm Voronil. I'm guessing you're angling for an invitation to one of my super parties. Well, forget about it. Invitation only, and no invitation for you, stranger.
Through some sleuthing, we find that Voronil is indeed in possession of some skooma, inferring that although NPCs such as Doolfish do not directly carry skooma on their person, no doubt to the mind-boggling logistics that Oblivion would have to take into account. This then opens up another possibility. What if we can trace, through contact, where skooma originates from?
Skooma.
Circling back to the source of the skooma in the Waterfront District, and the new inference that skooma is implied to be supplied by proximity, logically, if Mervrina was written out as the local distributor, then who was in charge of supplying skooma inside the barrel next to her home, which is basically the nexus point of all skooma in Cyrodiil? Well, I believe I've potentially solved the mystery of the Phantom Supply. Just like trailing Phalion to the Waterfront District, we can similarly follow our best leads to the barrel supplier, which are two known skooma addicts currently residing in the Imperial City. The first, and seemingly most likely candidate, is the ever-intoxicated Trennis Duronius. When first met, it becomes apparent that he lives in a constant haze.
Whoa! Oh, you scared me. I was off in my happy place, and you just popped in and wrecked the whole thing.
Superficially, Trennis is undoubtedly a logical candidate as the supplier to the Auram's chest and potential distributor abroad, as in his private quarters located in his home in the Temple District are 3 locked chests boasting very hard locks with a grand total of a whopping 15 skooma bottles across the trio. Plus, on the 19th of each month, when the clock strikes midnight, Trennis seemingly gives in to his skooma urges, leaving the Imperial City for Breville's infamous skooma den. Does he personally own way too much skooma to need to travel to a den? Quite possibly. But there's something about Trennis's more flamboyant and reckless demeanor which makes me question if he has the capacity for organized crime versus personal consumption, as when querying his city of choice, he'll say,
Big city. I'd really love the lights at night. Shoo, shoo. The city of love. Got it? Love, light, night. Big. Big, 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 big.
The second, more low-key traveler to Breville's seedy shelter is a wood elf commoner named Gellifor, who works in a distribution warehouse in the Market District.
I'm Gellifor, the Watchman. I keep an eye on things.
When asked about the Imperial City, he reveals he is somewhat clued in on the happenings down at the Waterfront District, as if he knows about Mervrina's position in the guild and the local goings-on.
Crime in the city? Well, you hear a lot of complaining, but it's really not so bad. The Thieves' Guild is smart. They don't want any trouble with the watch.
And, like Trennis, Gellifor makes a monthly trip out of the city on the 17th of each month. The Bosma will pack up the warehouse at midnight and set off for Breville's den. But how does that make him a viable candidate as a courier of the prohibited potions? Especially as, unlike Trennis, none are found in his home or on his person.
From where do you hail? Skooma.
As a quick recap, let's take inventory of what has been confirmed. We know that the Aurum gang of orcs collect skooma from the barrel in the Waterfront district and distribute it in the Cheydinhal region. We also know that skooma can be seen on individuals such as Gellifor when in Breville, even if they're not carrying any on their person, as they're still seen drinking the substance, making anybody who drinks skooma a potential distributor. And we also know that, according to Vlanaris Covincial, that he, and possibly his siblings, was either dealt skooma by or under the employ of the Aurum gang. After doing some research on Gellifor, I noticed a curiosity about his habits. See, he works in the Imperial Warehouse alone, and he is quite protective of the place, which makes sense. But the wiki then states that this warehouse that he works in the Market District may be a branch of the Imperial Trading Company. And here's where things get very interesting. See, it's not only Vlanaris and his siblings that works the docks. The orc Azul Grogulam is an employee of the adjoining Imperial Trading Warehouse's main office in the Waterfront district. But how does that relate to the respawning skooma? Well, it just so happens that Azul lived with Mavrina Arano prior to her incarceration, and when met, warns.
Uzul Grogulam, I'm courting Mavrina Arano, so stay away from her. I got matrimony on my mind.
Despite it being against cultural norms, superficially Azul appears to be infatuated with the rather acerbic Dunmer. However, when the orc is pressed about the Imperial City, he will reveal how irresolute his infatuation is, stating,
Hard to find an orc girl in this city like Uma Gramarad. Smart, tough, got a good trade, nice looking too. So I gotta make my intentions clear.
This is an easily overlooked discrepancy, but it had me wonder about the true motivations of the onerous orc. See, we have an intermixed couple with two separate beds that has a skooma source attached to the house. I postulate that the Aurum gang has infiltrated the docks in their entirety and the workers. Vlanaris wasn't just a user caught up with the gang's dealings, but under their employ directly, as probably half of the Waterfront residents are.
I'm Kastav Covincial, and if you listen to that witch of a sister of mine, Bronsilla, I'm also a dog and a pig. I do my part on the docks, just like Bronsilla and Vlanaris. Why should I kill myself? They don't pay me anymore. For what I get paid, I work plenty.
Consider the following. What if skooma arrives in the Waterfront district and is being shipped via the Imperial Trading Warehouse under the watchful eye of Azul, who keeps 10 bottles for the Aurums, his job with the Imperial Trading Company a ruse, and subsequently Gellifor, under the employ of the Aurum gang, has skooma shipped to his warehouse where he is alone to disperse it to the attics of Breville, all the while being undetected by the Imperial Watch. Even if it doesn't make it to the distribution centers, the theory is still further bolstered because there is no discernible distillery in Cyrodiil that we know of, and the Waterfront district, it being the only place that skooma respawns, it's safe to assume that it is being shipped in from outside of Cyrodiil. Take the Marie Eleanor, for example, a known pirate vessel docked in the Imperial Waterfront, which crew will defend said cargo with their life.
I hope I made myself clear the first time. If you get near that ship, you'll end up dead. Now get out of my face.
Phew. So that was a lot of detective work out of the way, but what do you think? Even without the distribution theory, did you enjoy the video following skooma as it traveled around the Heartlands? Let me know in the comments below if you came to the same conclusion, and make sure to subscribe to find out the last question, which we'll explore in the next video, which is, how was skooma responsible for some of the Oblivion Gates?